Fantastic. It is awesome to be here, and I am so happy that people showed up. So praise God for that. Thank you all for being here. As he said, my name is Robert Amaya. I started in the film industry under Courageous with the Kendrick brothers. How many people have seen Courageous? Just a few of you. Okay, great. So Courageous was the first time I was ever on set in front of a camera. And it was the scariest thing I could have ever imagined up until that point. Now, I'd done a lot of performing before that. I'd come from the theater world for about 6 years. I did theater professionally, regionally, in a lot of different places, particularly in the Florida, state of Florida, where I was based. Did a lot of work with Walt Disney as well. Both my wife and I got an opportunity for a season to perform for them. I was able to sing with the Voices of Liberty. If there's any Disney fans here and understand, yeah. Voices of Liberty, an amazing, amazing group, world-renowned group for singing a cappella Americana music. Fantastic. If you guys ever get a chance to go to the Magic Kingdom, I suggest highly that you go and watch the Voices of Liberty. If you want to know what they're like and you want to kind of ever hear them, this is a free plug. I probably shouldn't even be doing this, but you can look for Voctive. If you know the group Voctive, that's essentially former members of the Voices of Liberty. But I had the opportunity of doing that for about 6 years, and then the Lord opened up an opportunity out of nowhere for me to come on board with Courageous. And that is a funny story in and of itself, and I don't want to take too much of your time, but basically, to give it to you in a nutshell, I never even submitted a headshot or resume when I heard about Courageous. I had a friend of mine, I was living in Miami, and a friend of mine who's a local producer said, hey, these guys who did Fireproof are doing this movie, and they're looking for a Latino male for a role. And so, you kind of fit it, so why don't you go submit your stuff? And I was like, oh, okay, sure, but, what are the chances of me ever being in a movie? So I didn't do anything about it. And then about a month goes by, and this same guy now, who's from my church, comes up to me, because this time my wife is with me, and he goes, hey, did you ever submit your headshot resume? Because I never saw it. And at that point, my wife just kind of turns to me, and she goes, what's he talking about? And I'm like, oh, okay. So yeah, there's audition, these guys and stuff. And she's like, we're going home right now, and you're submitting your stuff. Thank the Lord for amazing women in our lives, is all I got to say. So I submitted a headshot resume. I get a call the very next day from Terry Catt. Terry Catt was Michael Catt's wife. Michael Catt, former pastor, Sherwood Baptist. They were also executive producers, and she was a part of the casting. And she calls me to tell me, Robert, I just got your stuff. Listen, we've seen about 200 people for this role, and I just wanted you to not be waiting. We really can't consider you at all, because we have to choose someone we've already seen. And we start production in just a few weeks. So I just wanted to call you to let you know we can't consider you. And I was like, all right, not a problem. But in true Southern charm, hospitality, whatever you want to call it, Terry Catt starts talking and talking and talking on that. I mean, we talked about so many, from like pecan pie to, whatever, the orchards here, and so many different things. I mean, the topics were all over the place. And then about 30 minutes later, which I was like, I always say, it was the longest letdown I've ever had in my entire life. About 30 minutes later, she goes, you know what, Robert? There's just something I like about you. I'll tell you what, I can't make you any promises, but if I send you a scene, will you film yourself, send it to me right away, and I'll show it to the Kendrick brothers. I'm not making any promises, but I'll show it to them. And the scene she sent me was the infamous now Snake King scene at the back of the police car. I got a call a couple days later, and they said, hey, nobody has seen anyone do it like this, and we are just in stitches. Can we fly you up to do a quick audition, just to do a screen test? And I was like, wow, okay, yeah, like my first screen test. I've never experienced anything like this. I fly up, and one of these halls in this church is where we ended up. I came up on a Friday evening, so Saturday morning, and we're doing our live auditions, our screen tests, and it's the first time we were handed a script. Now, I gotta tell you, I wasn't alone. There was another gentleman there who was also going out for the role of Javier in the movie. And now, so they hand us a script that has a character description. And it's the first time I read a character description. I really didn't know much about Javier before. I was kind of just being a goofball when I did Snake King. And so I read the description. The description says, so Javier Martinez, Latino male. So, okay, check, right? And then it says about 6'2" and thin as a rail. I know, right? They thought I was 6'2". So, no. So I was just like, have they even seen the video? Did they really like watch the other guy who was there? He was about like 6'3", super thin, and a sweetheart. I mean, the nicest guy you could ever meet. So I was like, well, there it is. Decision's made. Like, I basically came out to just enjoy the trip, and I'm gonna have fun. And that's what I did. I enjoyed the audition process, didn't think much of it. It really relieved all the stress because I thought, it's a done deal. I don't even fit this description at all. So that evening, they said they were gonna pray about it. And the next morning, I'd asked for them to let us, to let me stay longer because I wanted to worship with them at Sherwood Baptist. For me, it was like, I was already a huge fan and stuff, and I was like, man, when else am I gonna have an opportunity to just have service with them and worship with these brothers? So they let me in, and before church started, they pulled me aside, and after a series of questions, which I might get into later, they said, it was unanimous after we prayed, and we're offering the role of Javier Martinez. And I gotta tell you, that was just, I had never felt anything like that before. But if you saw the movie, the moment I called my wife, I mean, it was almost like that exactly. Because she was expecting me to call her and tell her, like, hey, this is what happened. I don't know. I don't think much. She thought she was going to have to encourage me. So she was just talking on the phone when I called her. And I'm like, no, hold on. Because I'm whispering. They told me, like, don't tell anybody, though. We're not making it public just yet. And so I'm, like, trying to whisper it. And she's like, honey, it's okay. I'm like, no, shh, babe. Like, no. They gave it to me. And then she screamed. And it was amazing. So that is how I got on board with Courageous, a very crazy thing. And I tell you that because I want you to know that I think that what I get to do, number one, is a humongous privilege. I do not deserve this. I am not good enough for it. I am simply a vessel that is used by God to do what I get to do. But, and this is a big but, not like Miami, but I mean like a big but, all right? I want to take this opportunity because I really want to share a little bit of my heart. Now, we're going to get into some acting. I'm going to talk to you guys about some stuff that I think is really going to help you and revolutionize the way that you approach film when it comes to acting. We'll get to that. But I really wanted to bring you as much value as possible. And I kept asking myself and asking family, asking my manager, which, by the way, my manager's back there, Diego Calderon, one of the greatest managers you'll ever encounter in this industry. Diego has an amazing shepherd heart. He's a former pastor, and he just loves and shepherds the people that he gets to work with. So very grateful for him. He's a godsend. But I wanted to see what is it that I could give you from the experiences that I've had, from the little bit that I've been able to enjoy this career. And so it led me to this. Ministry. Do you guys know what ministry is? What was it? Service, exactly. Ministry is all about service. It's all about what you give, all right? It all goes out. Ministry looks like this. It all is about giving away, giving to others, serving others. When somebody has a ministry, they are looking to see who they can bless or how they can ultimately serve someone so they can glorify God. So that is what God called us to do. That is ministry. Yes. All right. What's that? I'm so glad you can read it. Industry. Now, what's industry? Speak up.
Practical work.
Practical work. Business. Profit. Right? That's industry. So industry looks something like this. Right? Everything is about coming in, gathering in, bringing in. Industry, like business, what's a good business? One that is profitable. If a business is not profitable, it's not a good business, right? So, what happens then when we start using words I don't know if you can read that, it's kind of light. Christian. What does Christian ministry look like? Serving. Giving. Offering. That's Christian ministry. What does Christian industry look like? Make money.
Or perhaps receiving what God is providing you, or perhaps what He's gifting you or rewarding you.
If this is not profitable, can this stay in business?
If the Lord wills it.
If the Lord wills it. But in the world that the Lord has created, outside of exceptions, hey, if miracles were common, then that would be the norm. So miracles happen, and I'm not trying to tell you that God's not all powerful. But I'm trying to get us to realize something. How many of you are actual actors or are pursuing acting? Okay. My heart bleeds for my Christian brothers and sisters who have chosen acting as a career and don't understand this difference. This is the greatest thing I think I can give you in the short time that I have for you to realize something. Now, don't hear this. I am not saying that either one of these is a bad thing. They're not. Is business bad? No. Of course not. How else are you going to pay your bills or, enjoy life and sometimes be even blessed with great businesses to be able to give to others, right?
Continue to serve God.
Continue to serve God. Well, which leads me to understand in Christian industry, eventually, the product or the thing that's making profit can be used for Christian ministry, right? I would argue a lot of Christian film, in the end, people want churches to use this or missionaries to take this. That's my experience with Courageous, right? Courageous eventually started going to missionaries everywhere. I still keep hearing the amazing testimonies of how God is using that film. And God uses that film even in the process. Well, it's an industry. Now, don't hear me, I'm not talking about the Kendricks, but I'm telling you that industry, if their distributors did not think that they could make a profit, we would probably not be talking about Courageous right now. When LifeMark was their film, they had a hard time. They were talking about a subject that nobody in the industry wanted to touch. Now, because they have their convictions, they know who they serve, and they've seen God over and over again do what God has done for them in their ministry. I'm saying them because I don't want us to attach what God is doing with them as if we are them. It's not. God has us on unique paths. But they were able to do LifeMark on different terms. And LifeMark has touched lives. And for the most part, LifeMark has been about ministry. Why do I bring this up? Aside from just telling you what the difference is and putting myself in really hot water, all right? See, I didn't know this was going to be actually recorded, so now I'm in trouble. But the reason is, ultimately, I don't want you to ever go into a project thinking that you're doing this, when in actuality, you're involving yourself into something that's this. I don't want you to give away yourself unless God is asking you to. but to give away your talent to something that you believe and people are telling you is this, when in actuality it might be that. Now, I am not putting ill will on any producer or anything. I just think that's what's happening in the industry. Sometimes we conflate these two terms. So I want you to just, with discernment and with deep prayer, because you're actors and you're calling yourself faith-based actors, most of you, who are dying to do only Christian films, that already, the odds are against you when it comes to industry. But we don't work according to odds, right? We work according to the Lord. But we have to have wisdom and knowledge. And so what I want you to know is discern which of the two you're involving yourself in, so that you value the talents that you have been gifted. I'm not asking you to be a jerk, be like, I ain't doing nothing for you. Sometimes value comes in different forms. It isn't just money. Sometimes it comes and you get a career established. Sometimes it comes simply in knowing that your work is going to end up being used for ministry. That's valid, but at least you know what you're walking into. All right, that was kind of heavy. Why do I start this way? It's because I value your talent. And I truly wish that in the beginning of my career, I knew the difference between the two. I went through a lot of faith crises because I thought, Lord, I'm doing this for you. And I was expecting something from people that weren't lying to me. I just never realized I was falling into a profit-making system. And that's okay, understand. Like, I'm a capitalist. Like, that's okay. And God uses that. I don't want you to see like, ooh, industry evil, Christian industry evil. That is so not my point. My point is just about your talent. Your talent is that valuable. The Lord gave it to you. He wants you to use it. And I want you to have the knowledge of knowing how you are going to use it. There's beautiful, pure Christian ministry that's out there. But pure Christian ministry isn't going to pay, more than likely, your checks. So most of us are probably actually thinking we want to be involved in Christian industry. And so that means that you are already stepping into an arena that's full of competition. And it is a fight, like any industry. Just because it says Christian does not mean it's got Christian people negotiating your contract. It just means that there are Christian themes in the project that you're negotiating. All right? I care about your talent. And because I think your talent is valuable, is why I'm bringing this up. And why should you listen to me? Like, what does it matter then? Why am I bringing all this up? It is to save you years of heartache. Years of heartache. And to hopefully just give you a little nugget of wisdom that you can have as you navigate through the waters of industry or Christian industry. All right? But God bless. It is a beautiful industry. And God uses it in mighty, mighty ways. But don't lose sight of what it is in its nature and its very DNA. It's also, I'm telling you this because I'm exactly where a lot of you are now. I have been. And sometimes I return to being back exactly where you guys are. Because in this industry, it's not a straight line. Like, you don't cross the threshold, success, and that's it. Like, I've arrived. No, it's more like you're getting pushed out all the time, and you got to fight to get back in, and then you're being pushed out again. You have to constantly be working on your craft. You got to constantly be making yourself smarter and wiser and praying and be giving to the Lord everything you've got and asking God, is this what you want me to do? And standing solid on His word, on what He wants for your career, for your life, for your talents. It is a constant struggle, but it is a beautiful one and a very rewarding one. I can tell you that since Courageous, people might recognize me when I go eat. People might come up to me because they recognize me. But as a lot of you have probably already heard me say, you know, nobody goes up to Tom Cruise to say, Mission Impossible changed my life. But when people recognize me, it's rarely ever about me. I get to hear about what God has done in their lives through a project that I was just able to be a part of. That has got to be the posture of our heart. So, any questions arise from something like that? You don't have to ask. That is super heavy. Not what you probably were expecting from acting class. Was that valuable to you?
Yes.
I love you guys. You have some questions?
Just out of curiosity, what are the resources that you could tap into to know you're always hanging out with some Kendrick brother type people?
I feel you. I know. I wish I lived closer because I'd love to always hang out with the Kendrick brothers, and not to mention this church and the people in it. So I feel you. But God has you exactly where he wants you and where he's calling you. And that's not a cop-out. I don't just want to give you this platitude. I want to say that oftentimes we're always looking out, and we don't realize that God wants us to look in our own backyard. I moved 5 years ago to Lancaster, Pennsylvania from Miami, Florida. Lancaster, Pennsylvania, you know, the great hub of all things film and movies. No, Lancaster, Pennsylvania is Amish country, all right? What am I going to do with a bunch of Amish people? And movies, right? So, but that's where God called us. I can tell you that right now, we are establishing an incredibly amazing creative community, because I had no idea how many people have talent in Lancaster, Pennsylvania, like really amazing talent. It is the home of a theater you may have heard of called Sight and Sound, all right? It is packed with talent. And the most amazing thing is this talent, the majority of them, they love the Lord.
Yes.
And I didn't know that when I went there at all. I barely knew Sight and Sound. I remember I saw the first show I saw was Jesus. And I was just like, whoa, this is amazing. I've never experienced anything like this. And then I realized what God was calling me to do. It was always there. It's in my backyard. And what I'm trying to do is unite what I call the ABCs, the artistic body of Christ in Lancaster right now, so that they, if God calls them out, wherever God's going to call them out, they're going to be equipped and prepared to do God's work, right? So what I'm saying is sometimes they are around you, and God's calling you there. Now, events like these are fantastic, because you do get to like fill your tank up, as Stephen Kendrick said, you know, you get to come here and see your people, you know, and feel like, realize you're part of a huge community, far larger than where you're at. But ask God to bring the people, just the way the animals were brought to the ark. I mean, it's like, Lord, bring them. I want to connect, and I want to be a part of that, is what I would tell you, honestly, is what I would tell you. Now, resources are online all the time. You know, Kendrick Brothers do a lot of stuff as well. They have programs and things that they offer for people that want to get deeper in how they do things. But God is calling, if you know God's calling you, he's got a unique path for you, Do you have a quick, yeah.
How do you fit your head into a role? How do you put yourself almost in somebody else's body that you're trying to...
So great. I'm going to get onto that. I'm going to touch on that in just a little bit, actually, as we get into some of these tips. Yeah.
Are there any more resources you recommend on differentiating between Christian ministry, Christian industry, just Christian business?
Yeah. Great question. Something I'll start with this then. The first advice I can give you when it comes to film acting.
Can I have you repeat the question for the camera, if you don't mind?
Sure, absolutely. The question was, what other resources or places can one visit just to be able to understand more or deeper the difference between ministry and industry? And that'll be the first point I make. Probably the best advice I can give any actor going into the film industry, and that is take a business class. There's a lot of free online resources about business. Become business savvy. There's a lot of information online about the film industry. It's good to know these things. How does distribution work? You know, what happens when we make the movie? How do people sell that kind of stuff? It's great to become knowledgeable because it just equips you so that when you say yes to a contract, whether it's ministry, you know, or industry, you know, you're the cheerful giver. Get it? So take a business class, truly. The more you know. It's an old slogan from when I was growing up. Do, 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 right? The more you know. All right, some practical stuff now for the acting. Oh, question, right before I start.
More of a comment.
Yeah.
I'm a talent agent, and so my job is to help make sure you guys are making money doing what you're doing. And, you know, in the parable of the talents, I know there's a lot of translations in the Bible, and this may not work in every language, but I don't think it's a coincidence that, you know, in that story, the talent is currency, you know, it was money. But I don't think it's a coincidence that the word talent, you know, is what was used, because your talent is your currency. And God doesn't want you, you know, I know that there are several, you know, sometimes people want you to do things for free, you know, saying, oh, well, this is a ministry, you should be doing for free. No, God wants you to He wants you to be profitable from the talent that He has given you, from the skills and things that He has given you. Why? Because the money's not ours anyhow. You know, it goes through us. And you can't bless anybody if you're broke as a joke and doing all your work for free, right? He wants you to, I believe that He wants you to be profitable. And so I've not heard this from an acting class before, but I absolutely love it. So.
Oh, thank you. I would just tag on to that unless you yourself in full knowledge are saying, I want to give this away. Because then in the end, I think she would agree that God is giving you ownership of this thing that you have. So are you going to invest it wisely? And sometimes maybe, like I used to give my talent away to my church when it came to children's ministry. Like I used to do that. It was enjoyable, but it wasn't just for me. It was because I wanted to give something. You know, I just wanted to give something. So that was ministry. But I do not confuse the two. Cool. All right. Probably one of the most practical things here. Whenever you walk or are thinking about doing film, who has done theater? All right, well, a few of you. Again, okay, so the temptation from going from theater, stage productions, to film, one of the biggest issues is what we call mugging. Do you know what mugging is? Yeah, exactly. Great demonstration. Everyone, look at this demonstration. It's amazing. Yeah, mugging are these exaggerated faces that sometimes we make to display emotion, right? Like, I'm angry. You know, like, I'm scared. Yeah, it's like these exaggerated expressions. Now, a lot of times that works in theater because, you know, the person sitting 50, 60, 70 rows in the back has to understand like what he's supposed to read on your face or in your body language. So that makes more sense there if you're doing a children's show. Exaggeration is key, right? That's how you get them engaged. But when there's a close-up on your face and you're on a screen that is 60, 70 feet, you know, large, exaggeration will kill people. Like, mugging is not the name. You got to think reality, the real world, what you do naturally. Try to avoid mugging. It's good to record yourself sometimes. If you have the time to read lines and record yourself, even if you show up the day of, you didn't get the lines until then, if you have some time before you start and you can go to the bathroom or something and just put up your phone, you can record yourself and see what you're doing, avoid mugging. Mugging is not a good thing. It is the most immediate way of knowing that this person either doesn't have a lot of experience or I can't really work with them. So avoid mugging unless you're being directed to specifically do it. Number 2, become the character. Now, here's what I mean by that. I'm not suggesting you do become method necessarily, unless that's your thing. When I say become, what I mean is, you know, if you're given the time, you're going to study the character. You're going to kind of try to find what is the personality of this character that you're about to portray. But here's what I say. No matter, even if it's a biopic, you're playing someone else, you know, in history. So they already have maybe a set characteristic or whatever. You've got to insert a little piece of you a real piece of you into that character. It's kind of like an on-ramp for you to be able to embody and take on this new persona. So what I mean by that is find something in that character that you do as well. It might be something as maybe a non-obvious kind of tick or a way of walking or something that really just comes out of you naturally. Attach a little piece of yourself into this character you're embodying so that it actually looks natural. It's kind of like it always will end up becoming, as you're portraying the scene, it becomes this natural baseline for you. A place to start over when you're in the midst of it and maybe you're a little rattled, start over and build again. So put a little bit of yourself into the character that you're portraying. Become that character. Ask yourself, how would I feel or react in this same situation? And be able to show that. All right. I know I'm going to go like lightning really fast, but hopefully these will be helpful. Number 3, say more without speaking. Acting is about responding. Whether you're being told good news, bad news, whether you're hearing someone else get good news, bad news, whatever the context is, whatever the scene is calling for, even if you're an extra, acting is about responding. Which not responding is a response as well. If you're an extra, you wouldn't hear the conversations happening at this table. Don't be all the way in the back and go like, oh, did you hear that? Like, doesn't make any sense. It's about responding realistically. All right, sometimes your reactions speak louder than your dialogue. There are situations now, again, I may get into hot water, but there are times when, as you're going through your lines, you might feel like, saying this line just doesn't, I feel like it doesn't have the same effect. So let me talk to my director, assuming I have that kind of relationship established, and say, hey, here's what I'm thinking. Can I just react to it? If you're told, hey, so-and-so, our neighbor passed away. And the dialogue says, oh no, that's so sad. When you see that on screen, it just doesn't seem so genuine. The writer's writing it because they want you to understand what's happening. But sometimes as an actor, and this is where your craft starts kicking in, you say, what's more effective? My neighbor died, and it's like, I don't even know what to say, right? Like that hurts. Humans, we communicate very subtly with each other. When we're face to face, I don't go, hi, so great to meet you. No, it's like, hi, how are you doing? So great to meet you. There's subtlety. We pick up on those things. It's a natural thing that God has given us, whether we're aware of it or not. Partly, probably because when human beings first started creating civilizations, we had to take notice whether people were lying to us or not. Is this person going to kill me or are they going to be a friend? So we pick up on these little things. There's a show, I recommend it to a lot of times to actors now. I'm not condoning it, especially because we're in a Christian festival, but there is a television show that was on a few years back called Lie to Me. You guys familiar with it? Fantastic show, because the entire premise is about this expert, a doctor, who can read faces, has his expertise. And so he can read all these, what they call micro expressions. And he can tell whether you're lying or not. And so the police will usually hire him, or the federal government, to read, leaders from other governments, just to see this recording and to find out whether that person is lying or not. The reason I love that show is because it's almost like every week you get a master class on how to behave naturally. You realize things like when people are angry, when we want to act like we're angry, we want to furrow the brow, like instinctually. Not everybody, but instinctually we think this is anger. Do you know what usually when there's if you see videos of people who are about to become violent, In that moment, before they become violent, their foreheads relax completely. And it is a subtle sign that we actually pick up on naturally when we know we're in danger. Something's about to happen. Little things like that. Because it's real. And so what I'm saying is, and I'm not telling you go see the show unless you want to, and you can learn a lot, but the idea is being real. Being real. Sometimes you say more without having to speak it, all right? A lot of Christian media and Christian films, sometimes we suffer because we write dialogue that when you read it, reads great, but when you act it, it's just too wordy. And so as an actor, digest it and see if maybe you can express it differently. I'm not asking you to rewrite. I'm not giving you permission to rewrite the script. You got to have that kind of relationship with your director, but be willing to experiment. Say more without speaking. All right, number 4, eye contact and engagement. Eyes are powerful storytelling tools. Your eyes can say a whole lot more than your mouth. This kind of goes along with what I said earlier, but here's the thing. Your eyes are everything. They will give you away so fast. I've been with actors where they're having an emotional scene and they're just blinking a lot. And they're trying to react, but they're just blinking a lot. And they don't realize it because they're trying to act it. But when you see a playback, you're like, why does it seem so fake? It doesn't seem like it's working. It's because nobody blinks like that when they're that emotional. Because sometimes we have these nervous things that we do. This is why I say record yourself so you can see what are the things that you're doing. But the eyes are a dead giveaway. When something's important to you, like if you're given an engagement ring, look at that thing. That thing represents so much. Like if you're happy about it, that ring is like the signed contract. Like this amazing moment you've been waiting for. Or maybe this is the moment you've been dreading. Either way, that ring holds so much weight. And if that's the case, why would you take your eyes off of this thing? You're like, yeah, and you're tempted when it's here. This, whoa, I can't take this. You know, that's different than, I can't take this. There's no value here. You haven't shown it with your eyes. Your eyes are everything. They express what you value. It also means the same thing when you're in a dialogue with someone. You have a scene partner. You're sharing that scene with someone. And they're talking, and you're looking somewhere else. Your eyes aren't locking with them. What you're communicating to everyone else in your theater is that this is not important. Now, maybe that's what you want to. Maybe that's what you want to communicate. This person doesn't really mean a lot to you. Then maybe you choose to not be looking at them. Eyes tell you everything. If nothing else, your eyes speak volumes. They're the most important thing for you to try to master. You look at things that you value, you don't look at things that you don't value. That's just what we do in real life. You know, some of you aren't looking at me right now, and that's okay. I mean, you know. I get it. That's because you're taking notes. I get it. No offense. Eyes. And again, with scene partners. Well, actually, this leads to my next point. Film is a team sport. There's an entire team behind making the film the project that you're a part of. It isn't just you, the actor, and it isn't just the director. Obviously, there's a cinematographer, but there are people that are putting up lights. There are people that are doing craft services in the back, making sure that you've got snacks. There are PAs that are picking up a bunch of equipment and stuff in between sets or in between takes, or when the set is moving around. There are so many people that become the team to create a movie. So respect the fact that it's a team effort. Practically, that means that sometimes just saying thank you to a crew member goes a long way. I said that at the panel yesterday. Saying thank you goes a long way. I try to be very mindful in every set that I'm in. when I see people making adjustments and stuff, just to be like, thank you, or, you're making me beautiful. Love that, you know. Something just to let them know you really do appreciate them. When I did Mom's Night Out, and I said this at the panel, but when I did Mom's Night Out, we had 2 different contracted people that were providing food. And by the time I arrived on set, like we were on the second contract with the food provider, a chef who was cooking out of a food truck. But I would spend my lunchtime like talking with him and talking with his other cooks. I just wanted to get to know him. It was sincere, like I just wanted to get to know them. But I'll never forget my last time on set, and I was saying goodbye, and I wanted to say goodbye to them. And it's the first time he walked off of his truck. And as he walked off of the truck, I noticed he was missing a leg, which he said was missing in an accident. I didn't even know. So he had like, you know, a prosthesis that he was walking on. And it was like, whoa. But he looked at me and he said, he wanted to shake my hand, and he said to me, in the 25 years that I've been cooking for sets and been in the film industry, no one has spent the time to have conversations with me like you have, from the cast. I don't say that to elevate myself. Honestly, I wanted to be nice. I like to be thankful and grateful to people and let them know what they mean to me. But what it meant to him was huge. It's a team sport. Now, aside from that, that means that also cooperate with your scene partners. You know, usually the textbook way of doing a scene is you get a wide shot first, right? When you're doing a scene, you get a wide shot. That means that, you know, they want to establish the room, establish the context that the scene's going to take place in. And that means that it's the smallest version of you on screen. Sometimes some actors decide not to really give it all they've got in this scene because there are no close-ups that are coming from this wide shot. They wait till they get their close-ups and stuff. I would tell you this, be wise about that. I mean, if it's an emotional scene, you gotta make sure that you're ready to perform when your close-up comes. But don't get tricked into thinking this is not an important shot. Because when they're on the editing floor and they're trying to cut between close-ups and establishing shots, like if those things don't match because you decided not to care, that is a nightmare for your editor. And if you don't know this is almost like a sub little hint, make your editors happy. Their job is to make you look good. Make your editors happy. So give it. The other thing I see a lot of times, okay, finally we're in close-ups, you're with another scene partner, and we're doing coverage, what's called coverage, right? So they're gonna get your close-up first, or, you know, and then that person's not, they're doing what's called dirty frame, where you're gonna just see their shoulder or the back of their head in the frame to establish that you guys are talking to each other and facing each other. So as you do that, like, yeah, your close-up, you're giving it all you've got. But then when the scene changes to capture your partner's scene and their close-up, I've seen so many people who then are like, okay, I did my job, I'm done. And they give that person nothing. The dialogue is so important. They're like, I'm finished, or it's not on me, so I don't need to give it anything. What did I say in the beginning? What's acting? It's responding. It's responding. And if you don't give your scene partner something to respond to, man, it falls flat. And it's a recipe to really get them upset with you. So be respectful, it's a team sport. All right, the 8th commandment. Anyone know what the 8th commandment is? Do not steal. I'll save you guys. Do not steal. Well, the 8th commandment does not apply when it comes to acting. Here's what I mean. Let me explain that. I am not suggesting that, you know, you watch Leonardo DiCaprio and try to become Leonardo DiCaprio. I am, however, saying, man, that scene Leo had, like the way he transferred from anger to emotion, the way he did, the things he did in his face, like how can I bring that into my technique, into what I do? So I'm not talking about like mimicking in the sense that I'm gonna try to be him, right? You're not doing a biopic of Leo, but I am saying maybe there's something they're doing. Everyone has an actor they admire or somebody that really, they're like, oh man, that person was really wonderful. They have a performance. You know, sometimes our movies that aren't good, but there's a performance by this one actor. You're like, wow. Observe. What is it that makes you act that way, that makes you react that way? And observe that technique. Observe that change. What is it that they're doing? And then how can you then bring that into your toolbox? How can you adapt that into who you are and make that real if you were doing a scene similar to that? There's nothing new under the sun. That's where I base this off of. And so just because somebody calls it method acting doesn't mean that that was a person and that's the only style or whatever. No, it's just was given a name of people becoming and really living out and almost convincing themselves that they are that person. But bring it into your toolbox, all right? The camera, number 9, or I don't know what number we're at, but the camera sees everything. That's good and bad. I don't have to spend time on the bad. You know what that means. But the good part of it is this. You don't have to, your job is not to perform for the camera. Your job is to be in that scene and do your scene. Somebody is handling the camera work. Now you can make their job easier, right? Like if they're over here, you know the camera's over here, don't turn and talk this way. You know, makes no sense. But so, you know, you might adjust yourself or be aware of where the camera is, but you're not performing for the camera. The camera's your best friend. The camera's there to capture those real subtle moments that we talked about, the moments where you're making those transitions, the moments where you're showing a very subtle emotion. It's going to capture it. You don't need to mug. You don't need to do anything exaggerated. You don't need to perform. You just need to be. Be. The camera will pick you up. When I did Courageous, the scene that I dreaded the most was at the end, the big test, moral test for my character, when he's being asked to cheat on a report. And the reaction that he's supposed to have, I was dreading that scene. And when I finally flew up here and got the schedule, guess what was the first scene I ever filmed in front of a camera for the first time in my life? Yeah, the ending of my character, essentially, that scene. Freaked me out. But I remember Alex telling me, just be you. Just believe where you are, believe what's going on around you, and just do it. And just be it. And I thought, I was so self-conscious, I thought I was so underperforming that. I thought no one's gonna read anything in my face or in my eyes. Like, this is the worst. I'm gonna get fired before I ever do another thing. And when I finally saw the film, I mean, look, we're all tough on ourselves, okay? I'm not saying I was great, but it communicated. It was there. And all the wet eyes in the room were the evidence of it. So just be. Don't get caught up in it. The camera sees everything. It's not your audience. The camera's your best friend. That DP handling the camera, they're out to get the best about you, the best of you. Just know that going in. No one's there to make you look bad. Again, it's a team sport. Everyone wants this to be the best thing that they've done. All right. Finally, we got about 10 minutes left, and I'll just end with this, which is a common thread here, but that is acting is not lying. Acting is not lying. Acting is about finding and portraying a character's truth. In the end, it's about authenticity and finding what only you as an actor can bring to the table. If you believe you are called, if you believe you have a talent to do this, and you're working on that talent, and you're working on the craft, you're taking the classes, or you're studying, or you're practicing, and you're engaging in theater or community, wherever it is that you can constantly be using that craft. Be authentic. Find the truth in that character. You are not pretending. Get that out of your head. You're not pretending. You're being for a short period of time. Again, it reminds me of that audition I explained here at Sherwood. I read the description. I did not fit the description. But because the pressure was lifted, I was myself. And I brought myself to the table. And the description no longer mattered. Directors and producers decided, I actually want to go with this instead. Bring yourself to the table and see if God does something amazing for you guys. Cool. Are we all right? Yeah. We're good? No one's mad at me? All right. Okay. All right, so we've got about 8 minutes, and I just want to be able to answer any questions that you guys might have, whatever that may be. What's up?
I was just wondering, when you are, let's say you're filming just a short film with only yourself and the tripod is the cameraman, and you're struggling with the thought, I hope I'm in the frame. What are some thoughts that you can think just to keep you from looking at the camera? Like,
Yeah.
how do you not look at the camera to make sure you're in the frame?
Well, yeah. So he's asking, sometimes when you are your own crew, you're your own cameraman, the only partner you have is a tripod and the camera itself. How can you keep yourself from leaving frame? In other words, how can you stay in frame, and what techniques can you use to be able to do that? I would say, number one, it's doing it over and over again. You know, you have a phone. The beautiful thing about most phones today is that they have that front-facing camera, which allows you to practice that. Now, the temptation, you're right, could be when you see something moving on that screen that you want to look at it. That is part of the discipline about doing film. Now, usually you won't have the scene showing up at you, somewhere. But there are going to be distractions that happen. Sometimes things fall. Sometimes people are moving because they have to move, and they catch your eye. You want to make sure that you begin to discipline yourself and be focused on the scene. I would tell you that if you make the scene the most important thing, whatever the scene is that you're doing, you will start to realize that you're looking less and less. Because as you start caring about the scene more, you become less self-aware, or self-conscious, probably a better way of saying it. Because you're probably looking because you want to know, am I still in? Am I still in? But I would tell you, instead of looking constantly if you're still in, go ahead, record yourself, and then go back and look at it. And then say, oh, you know what? I was shifting a lot. I was actually doing all this movement and stuff when I'm this close. No, I don't need to do that. I can stay more still, right? That's if you're solo. I would actually practice more, set it up, film yourself, and learn as you watch it back in replay, than constantly looking for it, because you might mistakenly condition yourself to always looking at whatever movement you might see.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
I guess if I could ask a more spiritual question.
Come on.
How do you stop acting? I find that when I'm praying sometimes where it's I'm hyper aware what I'm communicating through my body language, or even talking to friends sometimes. How do you turn that part of your brain on?
So he's asking, how do you stop acting? A spiritual question. From a spiritual perspective, how do you stop acting? You're acting is your life, maybe you're doing all these scenes, then you come home, you're supposed to be real, with your family or your friends or whatever. How do you turn that part of your brain off? That's a fantastic question. In the beginning, I was so guilty of that. I'd go on set, and I'd get all this service and attention. And people serving me snacks, making sure I've got water, making sure I've got all this. Then I go home, and my wife's like, what are you expecting from me? And I'm like, that's right, I'm here to serve you. Okay, yeah, right. So here's what I tell you. Maybe you've got a little method streak in you, where you take this like being that character a lot more seriously maybe than others do. Because I don't think, there are some people here that might be like, I don't know, I don't really struggle with that. But number one is I think, this is a crazy technique, but I've had other people that have talked to me about this, and that is, there's a technique that's used for anxiety sometimes, that, not that this is anxiety, but it's used for anxiety, where you like cross your arms, you dig your knuckles into your chest, and then you squeeze your entire body, and then you let go slowly, feeling like everything that you're feeling just goes and empties out from your feet. The exercise, what it does is that it kind of flushes your brain, and what it allows you to do is to say, oh, I'm stepping out of the day's work, and now I'm entering into something new. It's just a physical feeling that you create that actually forms a barrier in your brain to separate, oh, my acting that I was doing from the reality of living my life. That's a practical tool that I know people use to be able to separate the two. That could be helpful to you. I want to give you something besides like, hey, pray about it, but something like that that can really just create the separation in a very tangible way. Yeah.
So I know for like a lot of actors, they often get so caught up in their job that they don't know how to keep a balance. I mean, not balance, but they don't know how to prioritize their relationship with God. So how do you make sure that God's at the forefront?
The easiest way for me to keep God at the forefront is, number one, to surround yourself by the people that are going to make sure you're keeping God at the forefront. So for me, I mentioned my manager, Diego. The reason he's an incredible manager is because when he calls me, the first thing out of his mouth is not, hey, like, you got this contract and you got this. No, his first words are, hey, man, how's your walk? How are you feeling? Like, what's God doing? How's your family? Did you talk to your wife? You talk to your kids? Like, he's doing a check-in, spiritual check-in. So he does that. I mentioned I'm married. So that means my wife keeps whatever ego I have or whatever work, consciousness I have and brings it down to earth. Having a great spouse, or being in a great relationship is definitely helpful. My wife is amazing, guys. I told you I got courageous because of her. So, surrounding yourself with people, all right? And of course, your own relationship with the Lord. Understanding your priorities, very important. All right, real quick.
So I guess for someone who thinks they might have talent in acting, but aren't sure how to really test their mettle or get their foot into the door, what are some ways that you would recommend, like at least trying it with someone or at least trying it in some way to see if it's something that's a fit for you or not?
Sure. Well, I would start by asking if your own local church has some kind of drama opportunity or acting opportunity, whether it's children's ministry, which I got to tell you, I've already spoken about it before. I didn't mean to hit the microphone. Children's ministry is amazing, and I'll tell you why. Because children they're not going to give you pity laughs or pity applauses. They're the most honest audience you could ever encounter. I learned a lot of comedic timing performing for children. But I would say, like, your church. Find out if your church is offering some things like that. If not, expand, go to community theater. Find a community theater around you. Most places have community theater, and you can audition and see if there's a fit there for you. Or sometimes those community theaters offer classes, a place to start and seeing if you have the chops to be able to pursue this in a different way. Now remember, God can give you the gift of acting, but it does not mean you have to pursue this. It can mean that you do this and still have a job, right? So remember, those two things are none of these are evil. It's just, but God may be calling you to one and not necessarily to the other. Yeah? Any other question? Yeah.
For makeup and hair,
Come on.
I was wondering,
My favorite.
how can we create a professional environment to help characters or stay in character? I know it's kind of an intimate process depending on what we do to actors, but I'm just kind of wondering what your experience has been with makeup.
Sure, she's asking about makeup and hair department and how they can create an environment that's going to help the actors. Will be the last question. And I can be around and I can answer more questions if you guys have it. But how to create like a professional environment that's going to help these actors, continue their character, I think is what I heard you say. All right, so, well, first of all, let me start off by saying makeup hair is my favorite department. because makeup hair knows everything that's happening on set. So if you need to know what the temperature is on set, like you're gonna find out in makeup and hair department. But I would say a lot of times, like being always aware of the scene you're doing, which should be the case already. But as you know the scene that's coming up and you understand how deep or emotional or exhausting that scene's gonna be, is just to talk openly with the talent and asking like, hey, I know you got a big scene today, so I'm just gonna start, touching you, or I'm gonna start fixing your hair. So I don't want you to think that I'm not my normal playful self, but I'm just giving you space. And they might be like, oh, no, not a big deal at all. Or they might be like, thank you. You see that they're using lines. Read them too. They might be looking at their lines and you can see it in their face, stuff is happening. That is the best way. It's becoming really, you're just an extension of help for them. So communication is the best thing. Everybody loves like their hairstylist, and their makeup person. They're the best. They're the best. God bless you. Thank you so very much. I hope this is helpful.